Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sorting Hat Podcast, a show where everything and anything can and will be sorted. I, as always, am your host, Michael Barryte, joined by my co-host, Brice.
You're my friend, and I love you, but I gotta tell you the truth.
Yes, what is the truth, Brice?
I love you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh. I'm not cleaning that up.
I love you.
All right. The basic conceit of the show is we have a guest who is very knowledgeable or a huge fan of the topic, which we will then be sorting the things within that topic into the various houses of Hogwarts. Today, we are joined by one of my longtime friends, Paul Roberson. Hi, Paul.
Hey, how's it going? We've been friends too long.
Too long indeed.
Yeah, like since actual childhood, right?
Yes, elementary school.
Hell yeah.
Paul, for those unfamiliar with him, as most of you more than likely are, Paul is a fantastic writer, longtime friend of me. He is, as Reed has described him, a man about town. Also, he has a YouTube channel called Minimalist Mixer, where he gets drunk off his drinks and then makes those drinks with you.
Yeah.
And will ramble about as he makes those drinks.
They're great rambles.
They're very solid rambles. They run the gamut of... They're all over the place. But our subject that we're going to be sorting are mixed drinks, which are very fitting for the YouTube channel, which you've got.
Yeah. It's my... I didn't plan for this to be my wheelhouse and the thing that I'm the best at, but it's what happened.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to talk about this in the 4th month of my sobriety.
Yes. Paul is also... Anytime that we host a party... Paul is like, I am going to bring a drink and I'm going to prepare a drink. And so like...
We never know what it is. It's not really easy to tell by color, but everybody gets so excited about it.
And very drunk.
Yeah. Like 1 cup in, everybody's on the ceiling.
Yeah. It's great.
And then my ass is like eating chips and getting annoyed.
Yeah, I use Michael Barryte parties to... test out like experimental drinks that I wouldn't test out anywhere else. Really.
That wouldn't be safe for human consumption, but us party animals can handle it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what exactly led you down the route of like bartending in a way?
Cocktailing.
I don't know. I mean, essentially, what happened is I mean, my dad's a pretty big drinker.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that sounds like he's an alcoholic. Which is actually kind of a funny story because when I was a little kid, I didn't know what an alcoholic was. So like they show us like a video like if
Please
about
don't
alcoholics.
let the story get sad.
And so I was like, and it's just like a guy just drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so I was like, oh, my dad's an alcoholic because he comes home from work and he has a scotch.
Yeah.
So my dad had.
I hope that you would like when your school teacher would ask you what your folks were like. You're like, yeah, my dad's an alcoholic. Loves booze.
Loves booze. So yeah, my dad had to have a long, awkward conversation with my teacher about how he's not an alcoholic.
Oh, yeah, that did happen. That's fantastic. I'm so sorry, Mr. Roberson.
I have a reverse of your father, I suppose, in the sense that my dad does not drink at all.
Really?
And as far as I can, like... We've had one conversation where he has acknowledged that he has drank at least 1 or 2 drinks and it just like doesn't appeal to him. Whereas like for me, like beer doesn't really appeal. He'd mentioned something similar. At his wedding, he toasted water. He toasted with water at his wedding.
Wow.
Yeah. And like, so there was this part of me, and I have like no actual evidence, but I have many theories on my father because he's a man of mystery in many ways to me. To like a lot of little elements about his life that I'm like, maybe my grandfather, his dad was an alcoholic. And that's why like, he's just like, I'm not gonna like let that out. But in retrospect, like, I don't believe that that's the case because it doesn't seem like my grandmother drank at all. And like my mom really, like, I guess just that family part is just like, meh.
Oh.
But anyway, on to the more important things at hand. We're dealing with some mixed drinks, and we're going to be sorting them. Also, noting for sorting bias, I am a Ravenclaw, Reed is a Hufflepuff, and Paul is a Gryffindor. So keep those things in mind while we're going through them. Let's start with, we have a long list.
Well, actually, hold on, because I just because while I was editing my show, I realized something about myself. So I realized that sober Paul is a Gryffindor, but drunk Paul is a Ravenclaw.
What? Explain.
Okay, so because drunk Paul, like, if you listen in on my show, like I keep doing these bits and going on these long, super informational tangents, and so I was like, drunk Paul's probably a Ravenclaw. So I got really drunk and then opened up a secondary email address to retake the
Pottermore quiz.
Yeah, Pottermore quiz, and I got Ravenclaw.
Well, wait, you're one of maybe, I'm sure, a handful of people on this earth who get smarter when you're drunk. I just immediately become a bumbling idiot, like just face down on the ground. And that's my 4 months of sobriety. Oh no, I'm on medications that make it so I can't drink.
Yeah.
Just so, I mean, in either case, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes.
that I haven't just like poisoned my liver.
Yeah. So let's start with a whiskey sour.
Okay. So whiskey sours, essentially what you're doing is you're doing lemon juice, a little bit of sugar, and essentially that one's a coverer. I mean, there's two different types of kind of cocktails. You have a cocktail, the original kind are coverers where, the alcohol just tastes really terrible. So you're just trying to cover it up with something else so that you can drink it. Most original cocktails that we have are basically that because we, after Prohibition, people were just making like bathtub gins and really crappy whiskeys.
So they were just incredibly potent. So you needed to undercut them.
Yeah. Whiskey sour is interesting because it's still kind of sour and tastes bad, but I guess it tastes better than the whiskey that you're drinking.
Sure.
So yeah, there's that, and then there's the other kind is just something that'll just take the bite off, like a Manhattan or a martini. Yeah.
Okay. So then in a whiskey sour, you said it's one part. There's some sugar. There's some lemon juice.
Yeah.
Then there's whiskey.
There's whiskey.
Sometimes they put in the egg white, though, on the whiskey sour.
Yeah.
And I do not like it because it makes the drink both smell and taste like wet dog. I'll just be the unpopular opinion on that. Do not put raw egg in my beverage.
Yeah. Theoretically, with raw egg, you can put raw egg in. That was like more popular in the 60s to put raw eggs into alcoholic beverages. If it had like lemon juice in it, it would be perfectly fine because the citrus kills anything.
Oh.
But usually I opt out of doing that just because it's weird and gross.
Yeah.
I know. And so whenever I'd go to a bar, because whiskey sour is just my like, I don't know if this bar is going to be good or not sort of drink because it's really hard to fuck up.
Yeah.
If they put the egg white in it, that's how I know that I'm going to hate every single person in the bar also. Like, oh, okay, these are people who just want to be cool. They don't actually care if what they're drinking tastes good.
Yeah.
God, I have a lot of feelings. I don't know why it's stirring up so deeply. I'm just going to, all right.
A lot of judgments just being passed.
Well, I'm just saying, don't put raw egg in a drink if you don't know how to make it taste good. I think that should be like a rule of thumb for everybody in life.
Yeah, I think that should be a rule of thumb, especially going out to bars if you don't know how to make it taste good. The only drink I'll make that has a raw egg in it is my tequila fizz. And that you can put a raw egg in it. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. But if you do, it makes it like nice and smooth and all the bubbles come up. But
you just have to figure out a way to mask some of the muskier parts of egg white.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like that happens in making rings too. Because baking is definitely something I in my wheelhouse, and if you can really get the wet dog smell into your rings. And I'm not even quite sure if it's just like, is it like making sure that you whisk it enough, or to like get some of the proteins to be less sticky, or
Yeah, I think you have to like I mean, I think you have like there's a certain way that those proteins have to like structure themselves.
yeah.
And then it's good. But if you don't, then it comes out.
Welcome to Good Eats, everybody.
So with a whiskey sour, what are we landing in any specific camp as to how it's sorted? Because truth be told, I don't necessarily have the strongest feel on this one, but I feel like it might be leaning Slytherin.
Insofar as like it being like really easy to drink.
Like it It's got, there's a simplicity to it that I think might lend itself to Slytherin, but that also might actually, no, I take that back. That is a very anti-Slytherin scent.
I would say like it, you know, if we're looking at the prospect of like being easy to drink and being simple and not feeling like overcomplicated, it also doesn't take a long time for the bartender to make.
Mhm.
I put that in the Gryffindor camp because I definitely think in sorting you should sort by how fucking annoying are you making this bartender's day by asking them to make it. And I think a whiskey sour is like up there.
Yeah,
Like,
and
in
I
terms
think
of like you'll get a good drink, but it won't kill
and I
you.
think because it whiskey sour still has a fair amount of bite, there's no part of it that would make it Hufflepuff in nature.
Yeah.
Like I think any drink that is going to have bite inherently like rules it out of being a Hufflepuff.
Yeah, and Gryffindors can also be a little bit dangerous, and I think that would lend itself to the fact that like you can drink these easily and probably get a little bit drunker faster than you're hoping to. So that's why I think it would be a Gryffindor.
Yeah, I'd lean Gryffindor also because the drink is essentially trying to get whiskey inside you.
Right. Then let's move on to a gin and tonic. Now, a gin and tonic seems like a softer drink.
It is a softer drink. This gin and tonics were actually invented by the British Empire during their occupation of India. I mean, it was, Imperial Britain, but essentially what soldiers would do is they had a gin ration, they had a lime juice ration, and then quinine powder. Quinine tonic. That's what tonic water is. It's quinine, which is it's a prophylactic against getting malaria. So they would combine all of those things together just as a drink, so they could just do it all in one shot.
So this was basically a medicinal shot that was just made more palatable.
Yep.
That's fucking bonkers. And now we still drink it in fucking bougie bars today.
Yeah. That's a very interesting little factoid. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul, for that. That's like, I like that a lot. Initially, I was thinking that a gin and tonic might be a Hufflepuff, but based on this historical background, I feel like it's a Ravenclaw now.
Another thing to note, because the reason that they did this was, I guess like the two ingredients, because they're both so bitter, they're so similar, it kind of cancels each other out, and it feels like you get that smoother taste.
It's the way that math works.
Yeah. Two negatives make a positive.
Well,
I know math.
Because if you ever tried quinine powder or just like quinine tonic, it tastes like you're eating chalk. It's pretty bitter and terrible.
Yeah. But I guess when it's chalky and in an alcoholic beverage, it's all right.
Yeah.
This is going to be a drink that you're probably going to drink more often in the summer because it's like more on the refreshing side, right?
Yeah, it's pretty refreshing. It's also a drink that you can drink like all day long, every day.
But just know that if you're drinking it at any time of year, you're helping your guts from getting parasites.
Yeah, you can theoretically still drink enough gin and tonics to not get malaria. Theoretically.
Bottoms up, boys.
So, hey, we're going to South America. It's gin and tonics every day.
I could
for your health.
Yeah. I can get away with that. I have an ironclad liver.
Yeah, this is the doctor of drinks. This is a Ravenclaw.
Great. Let's move on to the old fashioned.
All right.
This is the one I was fucking talking about earlier. This one makes me so mad when somebody orders in a bar where like it's busy.
I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I was interning for a production company and there was a farewell party for one of the employees. And so they then said, logically, we should have the interns be bartenders for this party.
Oh, no.
And so the basic bartender setup was just, we have our rum and Coke, our vodka, cranberry or orange juice, and people were all coming up. And then this one producer walked up to the bar and said, I would like an old fashioned, please. And we looked at what we had and said, I'm sorry, I don't think I know how to make that or can make that. And this guy then like went behind the bar and basically pulled out the necessary things, made it for himself, and then said, when I come back, I want another one.
Like imagine being that guy all the time.
Yeah.
Just like that level of confidence. Paul, what's in an old fashioned, incidentally?
Okay. So there are many types of old fashions.
Yeah, you just put out a video as of this recording, like the day before, Paul put out a video that covered every type of old fashioned that there is.
Ooh.
Conventionally speaking,
Yeah.
an old fashioned is whiskey.
Yeah, conventionally speaking, it's whiskey. It's usually blended whiskey. Because blended whiskeys were a lot cheaper.
What is a blended whiskey?
Essentially, what you do with a blended whiskey is, you take a much older, like nicer whiskey, like maybe a 30-year-old, and then you mix it with much younger scotches or whiskeys to kind of make an evened out whiskey. And instead of like giving like a full bottle of a 30-year-old, you're kind of mixing it with.
So you're cutting it basically.
Yeah,
Like,
you're cutting it like a chicken nugget. Like there's white meat in there, but there's also other stuff.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's blended whiskey, and then
you do a half a teaspoon of sugar. If you're using, you can either use a sugar cube. That's originally what people did, or it's a half a teaspoon of sugar, 2 dashes of bitters, and you usually do like a teaspoon of water just to dissolve the whole thing, and then you just add ice, add 2 ounces of whatever. I mean, with whiskey, it's going to be 2 ounces of whiskey. Twist a lemon peel in there, and then put a cocktail cherry in there.
Incidentally, the first documented use of the word cocktail was when some dude wrote into a New York newspaper in like 1806 apparently, and asked like, what is the actual definition of a cocktail? And the dude who wrote back was said that it was a potent concoction of spirits, bitters, water, and sugar, and at the time it was referred to as a bittered sling.
a bittered sling.
Sling. I still think that sounds like a cool ass drink. I want to order a bittered sling at the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that makes you sound like a wounded, like mysterious person.
A bittered sling.
I like the ulterior
Give me a bittered
character
sling.
that you are assuming now. This
My James Dean side of myself. Super cool. I come in on a motorcycle. I walk up to the bar. I make eye contact with nobody, and I demand a bittered sling.
I'm not going to lie. Watching you just ride a motorcycle would probably blow my mind.
Yeah, because you'd be seeing a person die.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's your conventional old fashioned. I've also had it with an orange peel twist. Is there? What's the different schools of thought on that?
There are 2 different schools on fruit and old fashioned, which there are some people who kind of like it, and other people who think it's utter nonsense that you don't put any fruit like that. Like a cherry or lime peel, that should be the most that you're putting in there, and that everything else is essentially turning it into a fruit salad.
So like a Bloody Mary is like get out of my house sort of thing.
And people who are pro orange peel like it seems like they want to do every different kind of thing to it to try to discover like what's the best way to get this orange essence out of it.
Yeah.
Like up to and including setting it on fire for a bit. And like why do people do that? And what effect is it supposed to have? Is it supposed to be like bringing out the oils more? Or
Yeah, it's supposed to release the oils from the peel.
Yeah.
So essentially, but bartenders never do it long enough for that to actually happen.
Yeah, it always happens for approximately like 1 second.
Yeah.
And then plop it in the glass and that'll be $25.
Yeah. It's a nice showy thing to do.
But you're thinking that's more like flash, like cocktail starring Tom Cruise than an actual like this is helping the drink become more even bodied.
Yeah, especially because the oils from a lime peel, you can kind of get that flavor in there, but there's so many flavors happening in an old fashioned, and you're also covering up that alcohol that you're not really getting. I mean, unless you have an incredible palate that can taste anything, then totally do that. But for most people, you're not going to be able to taste it.
That's not going to be me. Most of the food I eat is Doritos flavored. So
it's true. So are we then thinking based off of the line of logic that you placed out beforehand, Reed, do you think that this is just a Slytherin, or are there arguments to be made for an old fashioned to be within another house? I pose this to you now.
I think it's also
Reed
important
Brice,
to consider that it was repopularized by a TV show.
Which TV show?
Mad Men. When it premiered, they said it, I think even by name, or it was very obvious that's what they were drinking, and they single-handedly got it back onto popular menus in city bars and stuff.
Yeah. There-
Mad Men's
there-
such a good show.
Yeah, and there is a scene where Don jumps behind a bar and makes himself an old fashioned. He makes himself and Conrad Hilton an
Mhm.
old fashioned.
Sure.
So I think by all of those, all of those things together, give it to me like Slytherin vibes in terms of it like being it's opportunistic, it's super complicated, and it's probably going to be one of the more expensive things you're going to buy in the bar. So even by those value judgments alone,
Mhm.
I'd put it as Slytherin.
And as a sidebar, if any of you have heard good things about Mad Men but have not started watching Mad Men, I will tell you the first season of Mad Men will be a slog. It is a slow burn. Once you enter the second season, that's when things like really ramp up and it becomes much more of just like a character piece for everybody and not just Don Draper, because he's like arguably one of the less interesting people on the
Mhm.
show, like in some ways by the end. Like
Yeah.
he's
And
like-
spoiler alert, he faked his own death, and he's still like, he's an interesting person.
he's Seymour Skinner.
Yeah. Armin Tanzarian.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I actually do remember, and this was like I think this was before like internet forums and people were like getting on the net when
Mhm.
that episode happened, and everyone was like, "Well, this show's dead."
Yeah, there's a great YouTube piece on like the day The Simpsons died, and they point to that episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they point to that episode as the one that really is like when The Simpsons start going into like weird territory where every character suddenly needs this needlessly complicated backstory that actually strips away a lot of their character.
Yeah,
But I will
unpopular
say-
opinion. I think The Simpsons was fine even after that. I think
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
I think it's still one of the few shows that you could just sit down. It's not going to be the best hour or like half hour of TV or whatever you're going to watch, but you can get through it and laugh at least a couple of times.
And if you want more on us and Simpsons, you can check out our episode on season 4 Simpsons episodes with Billy Domino. We sort 4 of them, I believe. But anyway,
Hi, Billy Pee-Pee.
steamed hams and all that.
Steamed ham.
So moving on, should we go to a Cosmo? A Cosmopolitan?
Also popularized by a TV show.
Which TV show?
You can check out the episode on the final couples of Sex and the City with Leela Hobb on the sorting hat. What if everything we sorted with Paul was just referencing back other episodes?
Yeah.
Where like you're our clip show inadvertently.
It's here already.
yeah, but,
our sorting hat
yeah.
clip show.
The Cosmopolitan was actually like made popular when the 4 gals on Sex and the City were seen drinking them. It became like overnight in like every New York bar they popped up, and it's made with cranberry juice, right, Paul?
Yeah, it's made with I had to look it up because I haven't made one in forever. It's
Because it's
with-
not 1999 anymore.
but yeah, it's lime juice, cranberry juice, and I always mispronounce this, but it's a Control. It's essentially
Control.
triple sec.
Yeah, and like
It's the fanciest type of triple
and you
sec.
would serve it up in like a martini glass, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's served up in a martini glass. Even though most martini drinkers would resent that it's served in a martini glass
Mhm.
because it's so much because there's just so much in there.
Mhm.
But you serve it in a martini glass because there's no ice in it, so you have to. The martini glass is designed to keep all the contents of the drink cold.
So there's some solid physics happening
Yeah,
to ensure temperature is
Yeah.
maintained throughout the drink. That's interesting.
yeah. There's a very specific way you have to hold the martini glass. Like most people, when you see them, they're holding the bulb of it, which you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to either grab it by the rim
Mm-hmm.
or grab by the base, so that the heat from your hands doesn't infect the drink with heat.
And everyone assumes that this is a more contemporary drink because you didn't really see it. Like seemed like it came out of nowhere, but there is actually evidence that something similar to it existed as early as the 1930s. There is a recipe in something called the Pioneers of Mixing at Elite Bars, 1903 to 1933. That is gin Cointreau.
Yeah,
There it is.
yeah.
Lemon
It's
and
not just Paul.
raspberry syrup.
Mhm.
So like a slightly different, but it was like it strikes enough similarities, and then we've seen like it even as becoming popular again as early as like the 70s.
Mhm.
So this drink has a much more varied history than the gay avatars of cable television in the late 90s.
How do you feel on sorting this? Because I've got an idea as to where it's headed, but I want to hear your take on it.
This is definitely one of those that is men are afraid to drink it.
Oh,
Straight
absolutely.
men. Like there's something emasculating about the fact, I guess, that like it's just like, I guess that it's even the color pink. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you straight men. Just drink or like that it doesn't hurt your body to put it in
Yeah.
to your mouth.
Mhm.
I don't understand why there's such a pushback against feeling nice or being comfortable when you're a man. but I'm not here for it. So yeah, it would definitely be like put under like the girl drinks that would get you girl drink drunk.
Yeah.
And I think that it's unfair and homophobic and
Well, it's like
not of the drink itself, because the drink's not inherently homophobic. But
Sure.
I think it has some persecution is what I'm saying. So I'm going to say it's a Gryffindor.
Oh, see, I think that it is a Ravenclaw masquerading as a Hufflepuff.
Let's explain. 'Cause this is exciting because I haven't heard of an example of this before.
Because like it's a softer drink,
Mhm.
so that to me makes it feel like a Hufflepuff
Yeah.
like inherently.
No, any drink that has like a high fruit and like ease of drinkability, I'm gonna say is probably.
And the glass is another situation that seems to suggest ease and comfort.
Yeah.
However, then based on what we sort of discussed about like the properties of the glass and also just the makeup of the drink seems more formulaic in nature, which makes it a Ravenclaw to me.
Mm.
So I think like it might or it might be a Hufflepuff that is trying, like I'm feeling like it's both Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff,
Yeah.
but it's one trying to imitate the other.
Yeah. One thing that we might want to consider, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like it kickstarted the trend of putting things in a martini glass and calling it teeny
yeah.
at the end, like apple teeny. Like after the, like I saw, at least from what I could see, the Cosmo made it so everything could be served in a cocktail in a martini glass.
Yeah, I don't know, because as you were talking earlier, I was thinking about it because there was this weird gender line in drinking
Yeah.
for years, and I feel like this is the drink that like kind of crossed this stupid gender line.
Yeah.
like this is like a girly drink, but in a masculine glass, which is the most idiotic thing in the world.
The Cosmopolitan is me, guys. Cosmo's the non-binary cocktail.
It's interesting because I don't necessarily associate a gender with a martini glass. Like I've never considered a martini a man's drink, but maybe that's just
martinis are definitely more unisex. It's like the safe drink of like somebody who went to an Ivy League school.
I associate a martini solely with a black tie event in that situation.
However, paragon of toxic masculinity, James Bond, that was his like iconic drink. But we'll get more into him when we talk about the martini, I guess.
Yeah.
Which we probably should soon.
we should, although it's not on my list of drinks.
What the fuck? How did we miss that when we were first talking about it?
There are so many drinks, Reed.
And martinis are the ones that people get the most angry about if you get it wrong. So it's probably good that we do talk about it now.
Okay. Well, let's sort the Cosmopolitan first. How do we feel about that? What were you going to say, Paul?
The way I feel about it is I feel like it's a Ravenclaw version of a Hufflepuff drink.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Ravenclaw saw what the Hufflepuffs were doing, and they're like, "All right, let's break this down."
Yeah,
we can make this better.
They scienced the shit out of a Hufflepuff.
Yeah,
this is a Ravenclaw appropriating Hufflepuff drinks.
All right,
yeah.
So if that is the case, and to stick with the glass, let's just do like a straight martini.
Yeah.
All right, which is going to be gin as our base, correct?
You can do either gin or vodka because they're essentially the same base spirit. The difference between gin and vodka is that gin has botanical. They soak it in botanicals to give it a floral taste, and then vodka is just a straight neutral spirit, as pure as it can be. But yeah, so you can do an ounce and a half of either gin or vodka, and then you're going to use vermouth. And the amount of vermouth you use is that's the whole ball game. I think usually you start out with half an ounce to like start with, but the goal is to use less and less vermouth and get closer to just the pure cold alcohol that you're using. So it goes to like 4-in-1, and then the driest that you get is essentially called a Churchill martini, where you just you stir it up, and instead of putting vermouth in, you just stir it up in the direction of France. That's what Churchill would do.
So vermouth is barely, if at all, being added to this martini, which essentially just makes it drinking straight gin.
Yeah. Drinking straight cold gin. Like as cold as you can get it, and then enough vermouth to cover up as much of the bite that you can, stand.
So an interesting thing about this, there's so much controversy and like, even besides just how it's should be prepared, it's unclear exactly where the name martini came from. There are two different sources that like feud about it, kind of like the Ray's Pizzas people do in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
There is a dude named Alessandro Martini in the 1860s who started a martini company, and so some people say, it's just been like the equivalent of like dumpster, where the brand name became the actual name for the product overall.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there was a dude named Martini.
No. I need you to go back to dumpster.
Dumpster is a brand name of a large trash can.
No, but is some dude named like Martin Dumpster?
That's exactly what I meant. You'd never heard of Martin Dumpster before?
No, I haven't. But now I feel like Martin Dumpster is the unsung hero of
that would be so.
Yeah,
can you imagine though, like if your name accidentally got forever associated with a thing that people just put garbage in?
That's what happened to John Crapper. During World War I, his family made a bunch of toilets, and he wrote John Crapper toilets, and so that's why we call them crappers.
I had no idea. That's where the word crap came from?
Yeah. I'm gonna go to the crapper. I'm gonna take a crap.
And then there's a whole town called Martinez up in the Bay Area of California that when you would take a ferry to them, apparently there was a bar nearby to where the ferry would dock. And so people say in that town that no, it actually came from the city of Martinez.
I buy that one less than the named guy, but you know what? In either case, that's fine.
Michael starting his feud with the city of Martinez.
Look, Martinez, here's the thing. You can fly me out to you and show me how everything's great. If you pay for the airfare, I'm there. That's my thing. I'm trying to get a free trip out of this.
Yeah.
And then,
unless you're a coward.
And then later in America, the popularity of the martini skyrocketed during Prohibition of all times because gin was easier to make bootleg than some of the other spirits, right, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it actually became as popular as it was because it was one of the only cocktails that you could really get when you went to a speakeasy.
Well, and it's kind of funny that you then say that Churchill's type of martini, the name of which is already left my brain, but
named after him,
it's just a Churchill martini.
Yeah, it's called Churchill martini.
Well, my short-term memory, guys, is fading. That then makes me lean very heavily, and also going off of, but not necessarily leaning so heavily on the Bond angle, that this is a Slytherin of a drink. The fact that it's straining and skewing as to the point where you'd go, oh, we just want chilled gin in a glass. That's just the alcohol. That's as pure as you can get. That is a Slytherin move.
Yeah, I would say Slytherin because this is probably the most elitist drink that you can drink.
Yeah, people will just tell you that you're making it wrong. I don't hear that as often as with any other cocktail.
Yeah.
Also, I just gonna say, I would rather just have a cup of olives than drink a martini like that, or even the cocktail onion. What's your favorite garnish in a martini?
The cocktail onion. That makes it a Gibson martini, and you like it. Cocktail onions. They it sounds like it's gonna be like terrible, and like it's the best thing you'll ever eat in your whole life.
I love any pickled food.
Yeah.
Like people are just sticking to cucumbers, and I gotta say, you gotta get out of your comfort zone. I tried to make that pun happen. I'm so sorry.
I heard and saw it in your face as you you
the gears
squinted
were
your
turning.
eyes. it was as if in that moment your mind was constipated.
Yeah, no, and I'll just say Kukfurt now that I can actually understand what word I was trying to say, and I'm so sorry to everybody.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Well, Cuke is a hole that it was really difficult to get out of.
So it's a Slytherin.
Yeah, it's definitely
for
a
sure.
Slytherin.
Shall we go to a white or black Russian?
Sure.
Hell yeah, the dude abides.
A Black Russian and a White Russian are essentially the same thing. It's just with a White Russian, you're adding heavy cream.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're doing is it's just vodka and then Kahlua or whatever coffee liqueur you're doing, and then cream if you're making the White Russian. The Black Russian was one of a couple of drinks used to like get Americans okay with Russia.
This is a Russian propaganda drink?
Kind of. Like that and the Moscow Mule was kind of because they wanted to start selling vodka in America.
Right.
But because of this thing called the Cold War, Americans really weren't all that great on Russian products.
I never thought about that. Like, yeah, suddenly we went to the Cold War, and then like in my childhood, vodka is ubiquitous with like every other spirit. Is probably the most popular spirit that you can drink now because it's easier to like drink straight up than other ones. I will say this feels like the equivalent of like, I really want Starbucks, but I also don't want to remember anything in 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's like very much like I don't really know. Like, are there any other coffee cocktails?
There are a couple, but they don't really survive all that well.
Yeah, like Kahlua is like pretty much just for drinking straight up or in White Russians now, right? I don't see it any other times.
I mean, no, not that much. I mean, there are like I do a lot of like really specific, really like niche cocktails because I'm a nerd.
Right.
But yeah, Kahlua, you're mainly using that for Black and White Russians. I have once used like I've done Kahlua and then like a cream liqueur, and that's super alcoholic, but that's like weird and great. Like I've made a White Russian where instead of using cream, I've used Bailey Irish cream.
Yeah, I think I've had that go, and that was like I had one pass of that and was flying.
Yeah.
It also is worth noting as a lightweight, like anything that Paul makes, I have to drink very, very conservatively, and that's like an awful combination because I'm somebody who just drinks things quickly.
Yeah.
And so I Paul and I celebrated New Year's together, and Paul brought a drink, and I just was like, I need to fill an eighth of the cup. And I was fine with that eighth.
Yeah.
Sorry, maybe I missed it. It's probable that I did. What's in the Black Russian as opposed to cream or heavy cream?
The Black Russian is just the Kahlua and the vodka.
Oh, okay. So there's nothing in there that would cream it up.
I want to talk about its role in the Big Lebowski because I was actually thinking about it.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So the Big Lebowski is, it's a film about a guy literally called the Dude, and like he's pretty easygoing. And I was thinking about like, because the White Russian is like pretty easy to put together. It's not one that you have to be as precise with when you're making it. And I think it's really interesting that would be the choice of that dude who's basically just going through the film and letting everything happen to him.
Yeah.
I think it's like a way more clever item used in the film than people are even giving it credit for.
So much of that film is just well crafted and pristinely constructed. And is that also leading you in the direction of Hufflepuff?
I would say that it's probably the more like it's like a high masculine Hufflepuff drink. It's like one of the few that's not fruit based.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily even associate masculinity with I just because it feels real smooth on the palate. Like it's not gonna make you like choke up at all.
But I imagine if you are somebody who's afraid to order what would be perceived as a girly drink, but you still don't want to have to like wince every time you take a sip of a drink, that would be my middle ground that I would go to. So that's what I'm thinking. It's your cover for when you want a girly drink, but you don't want anyone to call you a slur over it.
Yeah.
I see. So Hufflepuff?
Yeah, I'd say Hufflepuff.
Hufflepuff?
It's a loose drink that you can, you can.
Yeah,
put
and
it together.
Hufflepuffs love anything that you can't fuck up easily.
Yeah, It'd be real difficult to
let's
fuck up a White
continue
Russian.
on with Russia with the Moscow Mule.
Okay, so the Moscow Mule, from what I've heard, it was actually invented in Hollywood. But yeah, that was another one of those drinks that was used to like start selling vodka in America.
Right.
And usually, when you're drinking a Moscow Mule, you'll do it in a copper cup.
Yes. What is the origin of the copper cup?
I'm not exactly sure. I know why we use it. I don't know the exact why
Well,
we started.
Well, why do we use it?
The reason we use it is because copper is actually reactive. Like that's why you would people cook with copper pans. So essentially, the ingredients of the Moscow Mule react with the copper in the mug to make the drink just taste better.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's like a fun little bit of chemistry to get the most out of what you're drinking. But usually what you're doing with that one is vodka. That's you're also using there's ginger ale, ginger beer, and ginger syrup, which the differences between those are really subtle and great.
Mhm.
But like ginger ale is essentially soda. Ginger beer usually has a lot more ginger in it, a little bit spicier.
Yeah.
And then the syrup is just ginger syrup, which is pretty great. It just hits you get hit in the mouth with like a lot of really great spice.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Moscow Mule.
Yeah.
I like my ginger, so this is a fun little kick.
Yeah.
And it also, I feel, you just get caught up on the ginger and less on the alcohol.
Yeah. That's the thing I love about the drink is that you get caught up on this really great like punch in the mouth of this ginger, and then and it really does like distract you from what you're getting from the vodka.
You want to hear a conspiracy that I think is really interesting about those copper mugs, though?
Let's put on our tinfoil hats. Yes.
The acidity in the drinks actually are not actually conducive to copper, and it will throw out the pH balance of the drink. So usually, if you have a copper mug, it usually is lined with stainless steel.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, you think you're getting a copper mug experience, baby, but you're straight up just drinking from steel. I just think the people they just deserve to know.
No,
you know?
that's fair. That's fair. That's good. I think from a flavor standpoint that the Moscow Mule is probably a Gryffindor, but it could also be argued that it maybe is a Ravenclaw. But that's where I just stand. Maybe purely because I am a Ravenclaw and I am drawn to this drink. But
I think in general, like the biggest feature of it is like it's very easy to drink, especially when it's hot out, because like it makes sense that it originated in LA and that like it was most popular in like the Southwest for so long.
Yeah.
And it's also like one of those drinks that isn't terribly difficult to drink. Like for crying out loud, ginger ale is what you drink when you're sick.
Yeah.
So I would say like if anything, it's a Ravenclaw in that like it's like in the same area as the gin and tonic, that if you drink it, you're not necessarily going to feel more sick immediately.
Sure.
It might even make you feel a little bit better.
So it
works at the same cocktail hospital as the gin and tonic.
It's a doctor of a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so
Are
that's
you
why I
okay
would
with
make
that, Paul?
So yeah, that's how I would get to the Ravenclaw designation that you so desperately wanted to have.
I mean, I don't need it.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to Tom Collins.
Okay. So the Tom Collins got its name Tom Collins because it was a prohibition drink. And essentially Tom Collins was a code word for to find like a speakeasy, where if you were in a new city and you were like wanted to find where the speakeasy was, like you would go up to a guy who looked cool and be like, "Hey, have you met my friend
Who looks
Tom
cool?
Tom Collins?" And then if he knew what you were talking about, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, he lives down on like 6 and East." And then you'd go, and that's where
So there was no actual Tom Collins, much like there definitely is a Martin Dumpster.
Martin Dumpster.
They might have been friends.
Yes.
Okay, so then what is in a Tom Collins? Now, Tom Collins is in a tall...
Yeah, it's in a tall... It's the glass is actually named after the drink. So it's a tall Collins glass, so it has a high volume and a low surface area, so it keeps all the... It's a carbonated drink, so it keeps all the carbonation inside of it. So that one is club soda, that's lemon juice. That one you use with gin, and then you put sugar in there to cover everything else up. interesting thing about the Tom Collins is a variant of the Tom Collins. It's called the Champagne Collins. And the Champagne Collins is what everyone drinks when they think they're drinking a French 75.
What's a French 75?
A French 75 is the actual one is gin and cognac. But when people order French 75s here, it's gin and champagne. When champagne is actually carbonated white wine is actually a product of England. So what they're really doing is they're calling something French when it's two English inventions.
That's interesting and fun. Okay, so with a Tom Collins, we're dealing in gin.
Yeah.
And we're dealing in a more lighter, fruitier flavor.
Yeah, it's like a lighter, like lemony kind of flavor.
A really interesting piece of trivia about this is in the 1870s, it became a funny, like connected to the same thing. It became a funny practical joke to ask people if they'd seen Tom Collins as a person. And then like you would, they would just go like around the corner at the bar, but other people would just like get agitated. And apparently it became like a widespread popular like hoax to keep. It's not even, I wouldn't even say practical joke, but just like an inside joke, like a meme. It was one of the first memes in American history.
Oh, a good old prohibition meme.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting to think that like even before the internet, even before most people were even like across the country, even all like getting formal education, having access to writing to each other and stuff like that, we would meme. We would find a way to meme.
I mean,
the American spirit is in memes.
As long as there is communication, there will be inside jokes.
Yeah.
I think based on historical fact and also some of like the actual like spirit of the drink, I'm leaning Hufflepuff on this.
Oh, me too. Anything that like is like both a practical joke and a safe way for people to get to like fight against the man is going to be a drink of my heart. So
yeah,
that is interesting though. As a prohibition drink, maybe it does have a little more fight in it. Maybe it could be argued that it's a Gryffindor for that reason.
But it's a passive aggressive. It's a very passive way of fighting prohibition.
Sure.
Yeah, you're using code words and stuff like that, which Hufflepuffs would also get super excited about.
Yeah. Hufflepuffs love them puzzles.
Yeah, I feel like it's a Hufflepuff because it's kind of like at the end of the day, it's like a lemon soda that you get drunk from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then let's move on to the Manhattan.
All right. Manhattan is another one of my favorites. Manhattan and the Martini are essentially the same thing, but Manhattan you're using whiskey and then you're using sweet vermouth instead of dry vermouth. And then you put a cocktail cherry, like a Luxardo cherry or a maraschino cherry in there, and that's about it.
Hot take: Luxardo maraschino cherries are so much better than like your garden variety bright pink maraschino cherry.
Yeah.
And I would say it's such a shame that more people don't know about how good the Luxardo cherry. It's maybe in my top 5 foods overall.
Reed. You are being far too calm about getting a moment to really stand up on the soapbox and tell us.
I'm just saying it has a more complex flavor. It's not plasticky, and I don't understand why you would want to like make them so much more expensive, so it's prohibitive to the working class people to have a good cherry in their cocktail or in their Shirley Temple.
There's the Reed I was looking for.
I'm coming back from medical leave, everybody. I'll have more freakouts as I meant.
Clap.
Yes.
Delighted by that.
I 100% support what was just said. They are great. If you go to a bar and you got a really great cherry and drink, 100% it was a Luxardo cherry.
Yeah, and you'll know because it'll be so much darker, and it won't have like chemical sweetness is the best way I can describe.
Yeah, it's
like the kind of cherry that you get on a sundae. Luxardos have like an earthiness that like actually you feel like, oh, I'm still eating fruit.
Yeah.
Do you feel, based off of everything that has been said thus far, that a Manhattan is also a Hufflepuff?
I feel like it's a Gryffindor.
Explain.
I feel like it's a Gryffindor trying to do a Slytherin.
Oh.
Wow.
Okay. Is it because of the glass that you feel the Slytherin angle, or is it?
Yeah, well, because I feel like because it's like the whiskey version of this this highly complex gin drink, but that it's using a harsh whiskey, and then it's using sweet vermouth, which is a lot warmer. So it's essentially, I don't know. I feel like it's a Gryffindor being like, it's like we're just as good as you, except for we're better in this way.
Yeah. How do you feel on that, Reed?
I think that's 100% accurate.
Okay. Great. Let us close out with the Long Island iced tea.
Hell yeah!
Because I mean, we've had a fair amount of boozy drinks,
Yeah.
but a Long Island iced tea is this is your drink for the night.
Yeah.
Like you get a second one, you're on your way out.
Can we talk about how Applebee's is selling them for like $1?
What?
Yeah, they are.
On certain nights, or maybe every day, you can get a Long Island iced tea for $1 right now. This feels like we're like promoting. We're like, this is a commercial, but I'm saying that that's fucked up.
But if
and
you go to
shouldn't be able to do that.
Applebee's.com/the-sorting-hat and enter the promo code Paul's Mustache,
You too can get alcohol poisoning.
it's worth noting, and that was said with no reference, Paul has a magnificent mustache on his face.
Guys, yeah.
Akin to that of Salvador Dali. So if you
his mustache is iconic. Look it up.
yeah. And Paul has something of equal or greater stature.
No, the reason why I'm saying that it's so dangerous to have access to that many Long Island iced teas, Paul, what all goes into one of these?
This is all right. This is oh my gosh.
It's a doozy.
It's a huge doozy. I mean, there are a couple of different recipes for this one, but mostly you're getting almost every kind of alcohol in there at once,
which is usually not advised.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest, as a guy who just drank every type of alcohol at once, don't do that. You're going to get a terrible hangover. That's going to be terrible. And you're also going to get drunk in a way that you can't control.
It's worth noting there is no actual tea in a Long Island iced tea.
No.
Not a drop of it.
Sometimes they use cola to get that color. There's different ways to get the color to make it look like an iced tea. But there's no tea in there. You're getting super drunk.
Yeah, traditionally, you're at least going to see gin, tequila, vodka, rum, and triple sec all in one glass.
Yep.
And that's in a Tom Collins glass, right? Or
a highball, usually.
Or highball. Gotcha.
And I wonder if it's working in the same properties of like the gin and tonic, where all of these things that are usually so overpowering on their own suddenly just are all canceled out, because the Long Island iced tea is one of the easiest things to drink, in my opinion, and that's fucking dangerous.
Yeah. This drink is famous for being way too dangerous. Everyone's like, this is the drink that you drink if you want to make a mistake, or if you want somebody else to make a mistake.
And it's interesting because the other drink that I put in the same camp as a Long Island iced tea is a zombie, which is also a ton of different things. But a zombie sounds dangerous.
Yeah.
A Long Island iced tea doesn't even sound like an alcoholic beverage.
No. It doesn't sound like an alcoholic beverage, or it sounds like, oh, you have it sounds like maybe it's a little bit like an Irish coffee, where like you have coffee and you put maybe a shot of whiskey in there.
Right. This one, like most cocktails, has a very contentious argument as to what the origin is. There's one dude who's in the 1970 was like, I invented this for a contest. And then there's also also in the Prohibition era, apparently there was a dude from Long Island who would make stuff called Old Man Bishops, I think, or it might have been called Long Island iced tea, but it was perfected by Ransom Bishop, Old Man Bishop's son. Yeah, so it was this old dude who was making this crazy ass cocktail, and apparently they would get the amber hue not from cola, because that was still being used with cocaine and being used as a medicine, but they would use maple syrup, which I think would be an interesting variant to try.
Yeah. But
I think that this is straight up a Slytherin.
I was going to say it's either a Slytherin or maybe a Gryffindor, but it's definitely not a Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff.
I think it's a Slytherin that's trying to trick you into thinking it's a Hufflepuff when you drink it.
See, I think it's a Slytherin if you make and give it to somebody.
Oh.
That's a hardcore Slytherin move.
But if you yourself are making it, then it's a Gryffindor or a Hufflepuff.
See, in my head, I feel like it's a Hufflepuff in the making of it. Like somebody somebody inventing this, I feel like comes from the heart of a Hufflepuff, where it's like, I have all this stuff,
I can make do.
I'm gonna like I accidentally like made do with all this stuff and
it turned out pretty good.
Yeah,
It turned out
but I'm
pretty
so
good.
dumb. I don't understand that this is about to give people brain damage.
All right, so the act inherently determines what a Long Island iced tea is.
Yeah.
And with that, I would like to thank you, Paul, for coming on to the Sorting Hat. Where can we find more of you on the internets?
You can follow me on Twitter at Paul Roberson, PaulRoberson. B as in boy in the B.
Thank you.
And then
Minimalist Mixer on YouTube.
I'm Minimalist Mixer on YouTube. If you enjoy drinks, or if you just enjoy watching a guy get progressively more and more drunk while he's using real alcohol to make drinks from the 1960s, I can't suggest watching my show anymore.
You can then be getting more from myself at Belated Media on Twitter. You can be getting more from Reed at That Dang Dingus on Twitter. We'd certainly appreciate a review from you on iTunes. And if there happen to be any drinks that you'd like us to cover in the future, we'd love to have you back to cover more drinks, Paul.
I would love to come back.
And you can tweet at us at sortinghat_pod, where we also run polls and post and communicate with all you lovely fans. So thanks so much for joining us for the Sorting Hat. Now let's get day drunk.
All right. Cheers.